Today we're going to be taking a look at some of the most popular tactical flashlights that run on 21700 batteries, and these are all going to give you excellent run times and generally high outputs. And this class of light is typically what I'd recommend for anybody who would find themselves using the light on a regular basis. We're going to be taking a look at some beam shots, looking at their bodies and switches, and ending the video with a discussion of my top 3 favorites to help you finalize your decision about purchasing a tactical flashlight. And the lights we're going to be taking a look at in this video are the AceBeam P17 Defender, which is an incredibly rugged, high output tactical flashlight, the Fenix TK20R UE, which is one of Fenix's newest and most popular tactical flashlights, the Nitecore MH12 Pro, which is also one of Nitecore's most compact tactical lights, featuring the new ultra-efficient UHI 40 emitter, the Olight Warrior 3S, which is a very popular compact light from Olight, the CyanSky K3V2, which is another great contender from a lesser-known brand that has definitely impressed me over the past few years, the Chloris XT12 GT Pro, which delivers excellent mid to long range performance, the Sofirn SP35T, which is one of the most budget-friendly lights in the lineup, the Wurkos TD01, which is more of a tactical thrower with incredible range, and it's also very reasonably priced, the Brinite PT16, which is another tough-built tactical light with excellent switch designs, and finally the Nextorch TA30C Max, which is another high-output light with an interesting switch design. But before we dive in and check out some beam shots, be sure to smash the thumbs up button and make sure to subscribe to the channel if you're new here. I'm also going to be giving away one of the lights in this video, and to enter to win, all you have to do is comment down below and let us know which one of the flashlights in this video are your favorite, and I'll be randomly selecting a winner using the Comment Picker app next Friday. Full details on the giveaway will be in the description below. Let's start off with some beam shots of the AceBeam P17, which has a max output of 4,900 lumens, a max throw distance of 445 meters, and a peak intensity of 49,506 candela. The P17 runs a Cree XHP 70.3 emitter and has a cool white 6500K color temperature. It does have the highest output of the lights here, but during the first minute of operation, this light is going to drop down to around 1250 lumens, where it will continue to run for another hour. Overall, it has a wide hotspot and a decent sized spill, and it's going to excel at mid to short range use, and it does have a lot in common with the light that we're going to be taking a look at next, which is the Fenix TK20R UE, which has a max output of 2800 lumens, a peak intensity of 52,880 candela, and a max throw distance of 465 meters. The TK20R has a luminous SFT70 emitter with a cool white 6500K color temperature, and over the course of about a minute, this light is going to drop down in output to around 800 lumens, where it will continue to run for just under 3 hours. You might have picked up on some similarities in beam profile and throw distance to the P17, and overall we're dealing with a wide hotspot and a decent sized beam angle. The Nitecore MH12 Pro has a max output of 3,300 lumens, a peak intensity of 63,500 candela, and a max throw distance of about 504 meters. It has a UHI 40 emitter, which is a new style of emitter that actually has a round surface instead of a square one, which helps to make the light incredibly efficient, but it also has a built-in optical sensor that reduces brightness when it detects an obstruction at close range. There's a nice well-defined hotspot in the center of the light, which is similar in size to the hotspot on the CyanSky K3, which will be taking a look at shortly, and the beam angle is also quite wide, and it's also well illuminated, which makes it a true hybrid style and very well suited for both short and mid-range use. The Olight Warrior 3S has a max output of 2300 lumens, a peak intensity of 23,000 candela, and a max throw distance of about 300 meters. The 3S has a high-performance cool white emitter, and this light also has a built-in proximity sensor similar to Nitecore's, and with regards to runtime, it's going to ramp down from about 2300 lumens to about 800 over the course of about 2 minutes, and at this point it will run for a little over 2 more hours. The Warrior 3S's beam profile is pretty unique, and it's got a well-defined, crisp, mid-sized hotspot, and it's paired with a super wide, floody beam angle, so this is going to be another light that's well suited for close range or mid-range use. This is the CyanSky K3V2, and about a year ago I tested out version 1 of the K3, and it's definitely a great light, and CyanSky produces good quality, high-performing lights at a reasonable price. The max output on the K3V2 is around 2000 lumens with a peak intensity of 124,609 candela and a throw distance of about 700 meters. The K3 runs a luminous SFT40 emitter with a cool white temperature, and the hotspot is relatively tight, and it reminds me a lot of the Nitecore MH12 Pro, and the beam angle is average size, and even though the output is average, the intensity and the throw distance is really high, making it a really great light for mid-range use. The Cloris XT12 GT Pro has a max output of 1600 lumens, a peak intensity of 160,000 candela, and a max throw distance of 850 meters. It has a luminous SFT40 emitter producing a cool white 6500K color temperature, and as you can see, this light has a super intense hotspot with excellent throw, and it's going to give you the best throw distances of any of the lights here with the exception of the Workhos TD01, which we'll be taking a look at soon, and it's probably the most similar to the ScienceGuy K3, but definitely much more intense. Overall, the beam angle is more narrow, so it's not going to be the best light for short range use, but if you're concerned with longer range use, this light is definitely one of the most competitive at distance. The Sofirn SP35T has a max output of 3800 lumens, a peak intensity of about 19,625 candela, and a max throw distance of about 280 meters. And I've also tested and compared the standard version of the SP35, and it's one of my favorite budget-friendly 21700 EDC lights ever made. The SP35T has a cool white XHP 50B emitter that's somewhere in the 6000 to 6500K range, and its output is the second highest in the group behind the AceBeam P17 Defender we looked at earlier. The beam profile is quite wide with a very lightly defined wide hotspot, and this light also has a floody profile, which is going to make it more ideal for short range situations where you might need a lot of light. The Workhos TD01 has a max output of 2200 lumens, a peak intensity of 270,000 candela, and a max throw distance of 1,039 meters, making it the longest throwing and most intense flashlight in the lineup. It has a luminous SFT40 emitter with a cool white color temperature that will fall somewhere between 6,000 to 6,500 Kelvin. The TD01 has a very unique beam profile with a super intense hotspot in the center, another wider ring with a mid-sized beam angle, and there also is a large spill section which actually does a reasonably good job of illuminating the up-close foreground. So even though it's a thrower designed for long-range use, it's actually going to be usable in close to mid-range situations, which does make it surprisingly versatile. The Brianite PT16 has a max output of 2000 lumens, a peak intensity of 92,500 candela, a max throw distance of about 600 meters with a luminous emitter, and a cool white color temperature. This is considered to be an upgrade to the original PT18 model, which I also tested out here on the channel. The PT16 has a relatively tight hotspot and a mid-sized beam angle, and overall the performance and profile is similar to the Nitecore and the ScienceGuy lights that we looked at previously, and is going to be well suited for mid-range. Finally, we have the Nextorch TA30C Max, which has a max output of about 3000 lumens, a peak intensity of 38,025 candela, and a max throw distance of about 300 meters. The TA30C runs a Cree XHP 50D emitter with a cool white color temperature. The beam profile reminds me a lot of what we saw with the Sofirn SP35T and also the Olight Warrior 3S, and it's relatively wide and has a mild hotspot with a blurry distinction. You can see the tips of the glass breaking bezel silhouette around the outside of the beam profile, which does look a little bit unusual, but overall this is another light that's going to serve you well at close range. Now we'll take a few minutes to talk about the bodies, the switches, and the charging setups on each of these lights, and we'll start off with the AceBeam P17, which in my opinion is not only the nicest looking but also one of the most durable tactical lights in the lineup. It has a very grippy linear style knurling pattern, and the dual tail switch design is very well suited for one-handed operation. One switch turns the light on and off, and another cycles through the different output modes. And there's 3 different groups of mode sets, including a daily mode set and 2 different tactical mode sets, including strobe, which does give you a ton of different options. It also has a stainless steel strike bezel and glass breaking capabilities, and it is one of the wider lights in the lineup with a very deep orange peel style reflector. There's no charging port on the light, but the battery it comes with does have a built-in USB-C port. The Fenix TK20R UE is tropical green, but it is available in a few different colors, and it's got a similar knurling pattern to the AceBeam. This light has a dual switch design, and this little switch right here is a lockout, and also a group selector, which will let you pick between the step mode sets or the tactical mode set with just turbo and a strobe, and you can turn the light on and off and cycle through the different output modes with the larger button. The light also has a metal strike bezel with medium-sized teeth and a nice size smooth aluminum reflector. There's a hidden USB-C charging port which you can access by unscrewing this ring right beneath the head, and this setup is better at protecting the port compared to many of the flappy silicone covers that we'll see on some of the lights coming up. The Nitecore MH12 Pro is one of the slimmest lights in the lineup with a very straight and narrow profile, and it also has a linear style knurling pattern on the tube. There's a tail switch to turn the light on and off, and a side switch which will allow you to cycle through the different output modes, including 5 primary modes and 3 special modes, including a strobe. And the nice thing about the side switch is that there's an indicator that lets you know both the current output level and also the remaining battery life, which is also a very nice feature. There is a USB-C port beneath this cover, but this cover does have a hard surface to it, which is pretty unique, so my guess would be that it would hold up better than many other similar style port covers. The bezel is crenulated with very small teeth, but it is still a striker style, and overall this would be one of the better options for those of you planning on pocket carrying, and it has a smooth, shallow aluminum reflector. The Olight Warrior 3S is very similar in many ways, including size, to the MH12 Pro, and this one is OD green, but it's also available in a few other colors. It also has a linear style knurling pattern on the tube, and this light also has a very slim profile, making it another good choice for pocket carry. There's a switch on the tail which you can use to turn the light on and off, and it also doubles as the connector for Olight's proprietary magnetic charging setup. This side switch will give you the ability to cycle through 5 different primary modes and 3 special modes, including a strobe, and you also get an output indicator and a battery life indicator as well. The Warrior 3S has a steel bezel with very small teeth, and it also has TIR optics. This version of the ScienceSky K3 V2 is green, but it's also available in black, and this light has a relatively narrow tube and a mid-sized head, and it's very similar in shape to the AceBeam P17 Defender. A switch on the tail will let you turn the light on and off, and a metal side switch will let you access 5 primary output modes, plus a strobe. There's no port on this light, but the included battery does come with USB-C charging port built in, and the bezel has wide mid-sized teeth with zirconium glass breaker inlays, which combine for a very good strike surface overall, and the reflector is smooth and relatively wide and deep compared to most of the other lights here. The Klaris XT12 GT Pro is one of the longer lights in the lineup, and it has the more traditional crisscross style knurling pattern, and there's also a tripod mount on the side of the tube as well. This dual switch design is nice, and the larger switch will turn the light on and off, and the smaller paddle style switch will let you cycle through 4 primary output modes and an SOS and a strobe mode. There's a USB-C port protected by this cover on the side of the tube, and it has an aggressive style bezel with medium teeth and a very deep, smooth aluminum reflector. The Sofirn SP35T is another relatively compact light, which is also going to be great for pocket carry, and it has a similar crisscross knurling style pattern that we saw on the Klaris. This light has a dual switch design and a tail switch to turn the light on and off, and a side switch to cycle through the various output modes, including 5 primary modes and 3 special modes, and also a strobe. There's a USB-C port on the side of the tube that's protected by a small cover, and the SP35T has the most aggressive bezel style of the small narrow lights, and it also has a relatively short and narrow orange peel style reflector. The Wurkos TD01 has the most unusual body design of all the lights here, and that's because it's a thrower, and it has a narrow tube and a really wide head, and there is a switch on the tail which you can use to turn the TD01 on and off, and also a switch on the side which is going to give you access to 5 primary modes and 3 special modes, including a strobe. And behind the side switch there's also a USB-C input which you can use to charge the battery. The bezel is crenulated with medium wide teeth, and it also has TIR optics which help to create that ultra throw beam pattern while maintaining a relatively shallow head shape. The Bryonite PT16 has a linear knurling pattern and a tactical ring which is going to help prevent the light from rolling when it's placed on unlevel surfaces, and it actually has 2 switches on the tail and a side switch as well, which is going to give you access to 4 primary modes and 2 additional modes, including SOS and strobe. And on the other side of the tube there's a USB-C input there as well. There's also some medium wide crenulation on the bezel and a smooth deep aluminum reflector. Finally, the Nextorch TA30C Max, which has a soft anodized body and a crisscross style knurling pattern on the tube. This light has a very unique switch setup with a quick access tail switch which will turn the light on when you hold it down, and then there's this rotary switch which will help you select the mode. There's no port on this light, but the battery included does have a USB-C port built in, and this light also has a tactical glass breaking bezel with a mid-sized orange peel style reflector. It was really tough to narrow down this list to my top 3 because there were truly a lot of great lights in the lineup, but hopefully this will help you finalize your decision. And the first light that really stands out to me as a favorite in the bunch is the AceBeam P17. Simply put, AceBeam is a brand that makes really tough, badass tactical flashlights. Not only does the P17 produce a super high output beam, but everything from the build quality, the switch design, the aggressive styling, the anodization, the bezel all complement the performance of this light really well. I've owned a bunch of AceBeam lights and time again they impress, and this is one of the best selling lights on my website Goodnight Gear Shop. It is a bit wide at the head, so it's not going to be ideal for pocket carry, which is something to keep in mind. And I also did really like the Fenix TK20R UE, and that light also has some features that could easily push you towards buying that light instead. The Nitecore MH12 Pro was my favorite of the slim profile, more pocket carry friendly lights, and it did win out in my opinion over the Sofirn SP35T and the Olight Warrior 3S. Overall, there were a ton of similarities between the MH12 Pro and the Warrior 3S, and there's no doubt that the MH12 Pro relied heavily on design inspiration from the Warrior 3S. But overall, I really prefer the beam profile on the MH12 Pro, which does make it better for long distance use. The convenient USB-C charging setup and the new emitter design really makes you feel like you're on the cutting edge of flashlight technology, and it really comes together well with all the other design aspects in this light. It's also important to mention that Sofirn's offering with the SP35T is remarkable for the price, and if you're on a budget and you want something that's good quality for a great price, that light will definitely get the job done. Finally, we have the Chloris XT12 GT Pro, and this was a tough choice, but ultimately did win out for me over the ScienceSky K3 due to the button configuration, and also over the Bryonite PT16 due to the impressiveness of the beam intensity. It is larger than those two lights in terms of the overall length of the body, and it also has a wider head, so it's definitely not going to be as practical to carry. But again, the intensity was significantly better than the other two lights, and if you need something that can take care of business at long range, this is definitely an impressive option. Thanks so much for watching the video, and it would be great to hear your thoughts on these lights down in the comments below. I've reviewed a bunch of other 21700 lights, and I'll post some links down to those videos in the description in case you're still searching. And I've also added these lights to a database that I've been putting together over the past year with a ton of different flashlights. So if you want to see how the specs compare to some other similar flashlights, you can check out this tool down below as well.